What's going on, everyone? It's Ben from YGO from Zero, back with another retro Yu-Gi-Oh video, and we got another Demise format video. I'm really enjoying this format based around SJC Anaheim of 2007. Really fun time. Now, it features some of the new strategies that you can perform in the format based on new releases and things like that. But, there are some older strategies that are still good here as well. For instance, Gadgets. Gadgets is a very, interesting deck from the GX era, very iconic deck as well. Basically, the idea of it is you're using green Gadget, red Gadget, and yellow Gadget, all of which search each other, to basically constantly have a string of monsters that are able to just get in through your opponent's stuff. And you're using 1-for-1 removal to deal with your opponent's threats while your monsters sort of beat in. So it's a very powerful deck. It won the last Chimera Tech format tournament. And so, I figured I'd take the winning list from that event, adjust it slightly for Demise format, and see how it worked. So I made some slight changes to the list. One, because, some things were banned. One, because, some things I didn't quite agree with the initial list, but we kept a lot of it the same, namely the trap lineup, the spell lineup, a lot of the removal tools I did keep the same here. I think I added in these triple Raigeki breaks, and that feels good to me. If you're getting up on resources all the time, it's good to have a flexible removal option like Raigeki break in the deck. I also added Crush Card Virus, a new card in this format compared to Chimera Tech format, and I think that this is kind of an iffy card in my opinion. So, gadgets don't really have the most monsters to trigger this. I am playing triple DD Crow and a Spirit Reaper here, so those can all trigger Crush Card. But you could argue that you should cut this thing. I sort of included it because it's just such a powerful card when it does resolve, and it does deal with one of the biggest threats to this deck, which is all the monsters that can beat over your gadgets. So I figured it's a very good card if you can pull it off. You could play Sangan in the deck. I'm keeping it in the side. It was in the side in the original list. I just have it in the side here for experimentation. I figured, for your normal summons, you generally want to be using it on the gadgets to search things. And the other dark monster that we have here, either you're not planning on normal summoning like DD Crow, and you can set it if you have Crush Card Virus in a pinch, or you've got Spirit Reaper, which is sort of just used as a wall for your opponent's stuff. If you can't necessarily deal with their threats, this is very good to have as a defensive option. But, I figured Sangan is kind of competing for space with the gadgets themselves, because the gadgets are normal summons that search out things from deck. Sangan's a normal summon that will eventually search out something from deck as well. So I didn't really feel like it was as necessary to include in the main, but with tinkering with this further, maybe it's better to have it in the main deck for the Crush Card Virus than not, or maybe it's better just to cut the Crush Card Virus entirely and focus on other things. But, I do like Crush Card Virus when it does go off here. Now, I've mentioned the Crows as, being able to be paired with the Crush Card Viruses here, but the Crows are also kind of nice, because I was thinking about this deck, and I thought about it kind of in terms of more modern decks, where modern decks, oftentimes have one card combos and things like that, and that lets them have a bigger hand trap engine to stop what their opponent's doing. So I thought, well, this deck's kind of doing something similar. It just needs to get into a gadget, and then it's got its sort of monster game plan online, and it's just sort of normal summoning those gadgets for the rest of the game. So we can actually fit in things like hand traps here. So I decided to fit in 3 DD Crow. It's newly released from Strike of Neos. And so we'll see how this goes. I mean, it can hit a variety of different decks, T-Hero decks, things like that. Decks playing Mally, decks playing Disc Commander, and just decks playing Pre-Mat and Call the Haunted. It can be very good against those. So I figured I'd keep it in the main. This can definitely be sided out if you're up against a deck that doesn't necessarily play with the graveyard that much. Like if you're up against the Mirror Match, for instance, then you can definitely take out the Crows and the Crush card, etc. But I do think it is pretty good to have in the main deck, just because it does hit a fair amount of decks in the format. Other than that, we got the gadget package as I mentioned, we got the Reaper as I mentioned, we got Warrior Lady as removal. This is kind of awkward in this deck because it's a normal summon that is serving as removal, so it's not quite as good as just your other removal options here. So I might actually cut this, maybe putting in the Sangan just to pair with Crush card, because I'm not really convinced on Warrior Lady, but Warrior Lady was in the original Chimera Tech deck, so I figured I'd keep it around for this format, because it's not bad, it's just I find it kind of underwhelming. Next up, we got Triple Cyber Dragon. This is great because then you need your normal summon. So if your opponent's attacking over your gadgets, you bring out a Sidra, and that gets you even more aggressive there. For these spells, we got a Comfy to rip cards out of our opponent's hand. We get Fufu plus Overload Fusion because our deck can go into Chimera Tech Overdragon. So if it can, you might as well play the package there. We got a Heavy Storm to deal with our opponent's back row. We get a Limit Removal to buff up our gadgets and to buff up our machines in general. We got an MSC to deal with our opponent's back row. We got a Knock to deal with their sets. We've got a Pot of Avarice to shuffle back our gadgets in. Once we got a lot in grave and draw 2, we got a pre-mat to bring back our monsters from grave. This can be good with the gadgets themselves because, you know, if your gadgets were stopped by like pulling the rug or something, you can pre-mat one back and get that engine back online. You've got triple shrink here to deal with our opponent's monsters. We got triple smashing ground to deal with them as well. We got double bottomless to deal with those monsters. We got call the Haunted to bring back our monsters. We got crush guard virus, as I mentioned. We got mirror force to deal with their attacking threats. We've got triple Raigeki break to pop their stuff. We got arena destruction to deal some damage and also get rid of a monster. We got TT to blow up the board, and we got triple widespread ruin. You could replace these with sacrifice to armor, but I do like widespread in this deck because, you know, people are playing Cyber Phoenix, people are playing things that, you know, are not necessarily targetable, and so it is good to have widespread ruin just in case, I think. Especially because, you know, if your opponent does have something like a Cyber Phoenix up, then this deck really has trouble dealing with that sort of threat. So widespread ruin can really help with that, and it's very, very important for the deck, in my opinion. For the side deck, we got a sort of hodgepodge of things here. We got triple pulling the rug because they're really good against things like Monarchs, the mirror match, etc. You know, very, very good card against a variety of decks in the format. We got triple threatening roar for the OTK decks. We got a magic cylinder to bounce back damage to our opponent. We got double brain con here to take control of our opponent's stuff in case we bring in Jinzo, or double Mobius here. Jinzo's kind of awkward because you do play a lot of traps and you don't necessarily want to shut them off, but you can control it. So, you know, it's not the worst card in the world here. We got double exile to deal with their monsters. We got a Sangan, as I mentioned, mainly here to test out things. For the fusion deck, we've only got 3 fusion monsters that we're going into, which is Chimeritic Overdragon, Cyber End Dragon, or Cyber Twin Dragon. But I filled out the rest of the fusion deck with stuff just in case. You're never going into Super Vicoroid Jumbo Drill or Cyber Ogre number 2, but I just like tapping them in the fusion deck here. But that's going to do it for the deck breakdown. Now, you may note that I'm not playing Ultimate Offering in this gadget deck, and you might be wondering about that because obviously, you know, if you've got Ultimate Offering and you bring out some gadgets, you can get a bunch of gadgets going there. But in my opinion, that's kind of a win more card. If your deck is operating at peak efficiency, then you shouldn't really need the Ultimate Offering to go over the top. And if you are down bad and you draw into Ultimate Offering, then it can be really, really bad for you because, you know, if you're not being able to pull off your gadget game plan and you draw Ultimate Offering, it doesn't help you get out of that situation. So I'm not really the biggest fan of Ultimate Offering in these decks, even though I get why people have played them in the past. You can make like a Gadget Monarch list that also did well in a Chimeritic format tournament that I mentioned before, and that deck probably wants to play Ultimate Offering, but this pure version of gadgets generally does not want to do that, so that's why I did not include it here. But now that I've talked about the deck, let's dive into some games and see how this deck actually performs. Okay, we're diving into the games, and all 3 of the games I've got in this video here will be against Aratos. So Aratos is a freaking guest on the channel, very, very great player. So we're going to dive in and see if we can actually manage to win, and unfortunately, we got a pretty bad hand to start off with here. Now, we play 45 cards because, you know, it's one way to build gadgets. The, like, theory behind it is that, like, okay, well, 9 cards in your deck are gadgets. You're playing 45 cards, so 1 out of 5 cards should be a gadget in your opening hand. But the math behind that doesn't really check out, but I do, you know, get the sort of overarching, like, sort of theory behind it. So I just decided to play it because, you know, it's sort of an interesting list, and this version of the deck did win the Chimeritic tournament, as I mentioned. But, you know, you still do wind up with cases like this where, you know, you're just bricked on gadgets. And so, you know, that should show you that it's not a perfect theory by any means. And in a case like this, it's going to be hard to sort of break out of this. Now, we do have the Raigeki break, so that will be able to stop some of what they're doing. And we kind of have Raigeki break here to offload extra gadgets anyways. So pretty good that we have that there, but it's still going to be a bit rough. They go for a D-drop, pitching a Disc Commander, drawing 2, and then they're going to summon out a Card Trooper as well. Card Trooper milling 3. They're going to banish a Mally that they milled off the Card Trooper, bring in another Mally, and just get really aggressive here. So they're going to attack in over our yellow gadget. We're going to let that go through. They're going to attack in with Stratos. We decided to take that. I want to save Raigeki break for a more important target, but maybe I should have just done it to, you know, sort of stave off some damage here. But, you know, I'm kind of in a really bad spot either way. We draw MST, which will not help here. We'll go for green gadget, searching out a red gadget here. We could MST the back row. I don't necessarily want to do that because if they trade for our green gadget, I feel like we're still in an okay spot. But maybe I should have just gone for MST on their back row just to get rid of it. And because if they do stop this, then we are kind of defenseless here. But they don't stop that, which makes sense to me. They draw a card off Trooper, which is kind of unfortunate. But either way, they're getting value off of either monster that I hit over here. Because if we attack over Mally, they just banish it, bring in another Mally. So not really the best for us. So we set an MST to provide a little bit of uncertainty for them and pass back to them. They go for a DD Warrior Lady. We will take that 100, and they're not going to banish, which makes sense. They're going to attack in for 800 with that Mally, attack in for 18 with the Stratos. We are going to red gadget pitch off the Raigeki break to pop that, and they're going to set 1 pass back to us. We draw a green, and they draw Dust Shoot, so that is going to be a bit rough for us. They're able to Dust Shoot someone back. They're going to Dust Shoot back the red, And we're in kind of a tough spot. We could just set red to wall up here, but I'm going to get the search off on that red just to get it out of the deck. And then we can potentially do plays next turn. I'm not dead here. It's kind of a bad spot, but they attack over with the Worley for 100. They bring out Mally for 800, with 900 total, and I don't think they can quite kill us here. So, you know, I figure this is a good enough spot. I don't need to wall up with red just yet. They're going to banish for Mally, and then they're going to go for Snatch. We've got the MST for the Snatch, so at least we can deal with that. But they've got Zaborg for that green, and that'll just be the end of the game. So even if we had walled up with red, it would not have helped here. So that's going to do it for game one. Let's dive into game two, see if we can actually do well here. Now, I didn't really get a feel for how the deck completely played there, so I didn't really do much siding because we just kind of bricked on gadgets. So I want to get a better idea of how the deck like functions and stuff and how it feels before actually going into siding. Of course, I have more experience with the deck than I would go into siding for this. But again, you know, I'm sort of testing this out for the first time. I've played gadget decks in general before, but, you know, it is good to just sort of get a feel for it when it's operating in peak efficiency. And it seems like this is a much better start for us because we actually drew one gadget and we got that going on there. Now, we've got a bit of an interesting option here for Future Fusion. We could go for Chimera Tech just to get gadgets engraved to then bring back with Call the Haunted to then get our sort of engine online. But what I want to do here is I don't want to blow up the board, so I'm just going to reveal Cyber Twin off that Fufu, send double Sidra to grave. And now I can potentially go for pre-mat if I want to get even more aggressive here, but I don't think I need to. I'm just going to attack him for 13, set a bottomless, pass back to them. Now, they likely know that it's a bottomless set, but, you know, either way, I think this should be fine. They set a monster, so they know about the knock, which means that, you know, it probably isn't the best thing to knock it, but I will just knock it anyways because it's removal, and I feel like it's good to go for removal like that. We're going to set a call as well, just in case they somehow manage to deal with our Cyber Twin. We actually can bring back Cyber Twin with Call the Haunted because it will be properly fusion summoned off the Future Fusion. But that's just going to be the end of the game. Our opponent sees the writing on the wall, and we're going to go into game three. So that worked out pretty well for us here. I think in game three, I also didn't change up the siding. That will come up in later matches that I'll show off against Ratos here. But again, I'm sort of just trying to get a feel for the deck in the first match that I bring it out with. They're going to go for a D-draw, pitching the Mally that they searched off the Stratos. Then they're going to set 2 pass back to us. We draw into a yellow, which is pretty good. We can special summon at the side right here, go for yellow. They're going to pulling the rug that, but that's, you know, fine. We got another yellow in hand. So we're going to attack into the Stratos here, deal 300, and then we're going to Comfy, get a peek at what they're working with here. And we see that they've got a Rhoda, a D-Draw, a Card Trooper, and an MST. Now, I decided to take the Rhoda as opposed to the D-Draw, and the reason for this is I don't want them getting Disc Commander in rotation at all. You know, they can Rhoda out Disc Commander even if they can't D-Draw it, and I don't want them turning that online because they generally do have a large number of ways to get that back into rotation here. So I decide ultimately just to send the Rhoda away and hope for the best. I maybe should have sent the D-Draw. Maybe this is just a bit too greedy on my part, but they've already gotten rid of Stratos. Yes, they do have like you know, a pre-mat or a call, then things could potentially turn out bad for us, but I think it's ultimately fine. I set the Crush card as a bluff here because they've got MST, so I'm hoping that they MST the Crush card, and because Crush card's dead for us right now, so, you know, not really a reason not to do that. So we draw into a Shrink here. I could set the Shrink after going for the yellow here at the end of the turn, and I think in hindsight, I actually should have set that. I attack over the set thing. It's Card Trooper, but it's a Sangan, so they get the Disc Commander into rotation anyway, so it's kind of unfortunate for us here. Now we attack him for 21. I decided not to set the Shrink here because I figured that they're going to MST our new set, and I don't necessarily want them to MST a Shrink. I'd rather have them MST the Crush card. But in hindsight, this is a major misplay because they do MST the Crush card, which is fine. But, you know, we do give them the chance to trigger a Dust Shoot if they draw into it. And, you know, maybe the fact that I'm pointing it out as a misplay here should indicate what the next turn might bring. But they're going to go for Sidra, Mally, Card Trooper, just getting a lot of damage on board here. We do a Shrink to deal with some of this, but it is a bit awkward for us when they shuffle back our lone gadget off a Dust Shoot that they set there. So we draw into a Sidra, and they take the green gadget, which is just rough for us. And you might be wondering why they didn't take the Sidra, and that's because they've got removal for the Sidra. You don't really care about removal if you're bringing out a gadget, but you do care about removal if you're bringing out a Sidra. Luckily, it's just Phoenix Wing, so, you know, we will get that back. But, they know that we have it, so they can potentially play around it a bit. We set one shrink, pass back to them. They go for a card trooper here and get in for 2,700. And we'll just let that go through. I don't really feel the need to shrink one of these guys, especially because it won't really do much against trooper. And, same against Mally, honestly. We draw into the Cider again. The only move we have is to bring it out and just attack over one of their monsters. We attack over the trooper because trooper is not really as affected by shrink as other things would be, because it only shrinks the original attack of that monster. It doesn't shrink the total attack. So if we shrink the attack of trooper, then it'll just be 200 plus however much it milled for. So I do attack over that. May have been a mistake because it does get them a draw, but I do think it ultimately is pretty good because, again, attacking over Mally effectively gets them the same amount of advantage. So they go for a DD Warrior Lady here, crash into our Sidra. That will banish both, and then they'll get in for 800 here. So we drop down to 2,000. If we draw into a gadget, we're back in this game, but we draw into a knock, so kind of rough there. We set the knock, pass back to them. They are going to go for heavy here. We just shrink the Mally because that's all we really can do in the face of that. They attack in for 400 here, and then they'll set one pass back to us. We draw a Raigeki break, which isn't really the best for us here. We set the Raigeki break just in case something happens here, but they're going to attack in with the Mally. And if they go ring on the Mally, we can Raigeki break chain to that to pop the Mally, but that Crow is not going to be the most useful for us here. We set a shrink, pass back to them, and they're going to attack in with the Mally here. We do just decide to shrink that down, hoping that we can draw into a gadget or something to help us out of the situation, but we just draw into an MST, so that's not going to help us here. We set the MST, pass back to them. They just go for the Mally. We will Raigeki break that, pop the Mally there, and they'll just set one pass back to us. Not looking good for us. We draw widespread. It's probably not going to be enough, and we'll pass back to them. They're going to flip up a Gravekeeper Spy here, bring out another Spy, and that will be the end of the game here. So widespread will not help us in this scenario. Yeah, rough stuff there. I think if I had played around the Dust Shoot by setting the shrink, we actually might have been able to win that one. Because, if we have the gadget engine online, we deal with the Mally, we deal with the trooper. We're in a much better spot at that point. But unfortunately, I did not do that, and I got majorly punished for it. But we're going to dive into the second match here. Because we decided to do a rematch. And now I think I know the deck a little bit better, so we can sort of play around some things a bit better. And hopefully that will equate to a bit of a better outcome for us. They're going to go for card trooper, milling 3 to start with, milling a Dasher, a Sidra, and a Phoenix Wing here. We draw for turn, and we run into another Dust Shoot. So they're able to Dust Shoot us yet again, taking the Warrior Lady here, so that way they get the draw off the trooper. Well, we only have really one option here, so we're going to attack into the trooper there and deal 1,700 to them. They draw for turn. Or not draw for turn, but for the trooper, we set a ring, pass back to them. And if they do have Dust Shoot here, we can potentially pitch the Crow in our draw phase for priority. We could have also pitched the Crow to banish the Dasher preemptively as well, just in case they drew something that they wanted to use the Dasher effect for. But instead, I saved the Crow, and I think it does make sense. They de-draw pitching Mally, so we could potentially also pitch Crow to get rid of Mally before it can actually use its effect here. But ultimately, I decide not to because I've got Ring. So I can stop a Mally play if they go for it. I can stop a Monarch play if they bring that down. And I feel like it's better just to get rid of the Monarch rather than to do something here. They go for a Coffee, though. I debate just shotgunning this DD Crow to take out one of their cards in grave. But I figure if they want to take the Crow off the Coffee, we still have Pot of Avarice, we still have Raigeki Break, which are still very powerful cards for us here. So I will just let them go for this. They take the Raigeki Break there. And now they're going to tribute for a Zaborg. We'll let that go through. They're going to attack in for 24. We will ring that and deal 24 to them. And we'll also take 24 off that. So we could DD Crow the Mally before they have a chance to use it, but we do just let the Mally come out because I figure, if we draw into a way to beat over Mally, that Mally is basically dead, and I'd rather have the Crow for a better situation. We draw into Yellow Gadget here, which is very, very good. We had a 9 out of 40 chance of drawing it, so, it made sense that we'd get into this sort of thing, but if we hadn't drawn it, it might have been a bit bad for us, but we're going to attack into the Mally there with the yellow, and then we're just going to think about this and pass back to them because, they know that the last card we have in hand is Avarice. They saw it off Comfy, so no point into bluffing that. They're going to set one, pass back to us. We will Crow, target the Dasher here just to play around Dust Shoot now. We draw into Overload Fusion, which, we do have a Sidra engrave, but we don't really have the biggest threat here, so I don't really want to use the Overload yet. We go for green now, getting a red, and we're just going to attack into that set monster with the green. It is a Spirit Reaper, so we can't deal with that yet. We'll just pass back to them. And they're going to go for a Rhoda here. And what are they going to search out? They're going to search out a Stratos. Stratos is a bit awkward for us. They can search a Disc Commander with that. Get that to hand. And then they're going to attack over our Yellow Gadget with the Stratos, dealing 600. and passing back to us. We draw into a Comfy, so we can at least rip something out of their hand. We're going to go for red first. Just search out that yellow. And now we can Comfy, get a peek at what they're working with here. And we see a bit of a scary sight. We see Fearmonger and Discommander. That isn't really as bad, but we see double Brain Con. So if they double Brain Con our board away, then they can attack in for a lot of damage. And that is not good for us. So we do take one of the Brain Cons to at least make that a little bit less explosive here. But it's still a bit worrying. Especially because, you know, if they draw into D-Draw, that's online. They draw 2 more. So it's kind of awkward for us. We switch the green to defense because we can't attack over anything here. And if they do want to go for it, then at least we're taking less damage. They're going to set 2, pass back to us. We draw into a Smashing Ground here. So at least we can deal with these Stratos. That's something. We'll summon out a yellow here, search out a green. And then we'll Smashing away that Stratos. We're just going to pass back to them. I don't necessarily want to lose my Overload by setting it into an MST or something like that. But yeah, I do think that smashing the Stratos is good because that's their sort of aggressive outlet here to do things with. But things could get really bad for us still. And I didn't attack into their set because there was no real good scenario to doing that. If I attack into, I guess Fearmonger isn't really that bad, but it was likely the Disc Commander. I didn't want to put that in grave for them to revive potentially. But they summon out Zaborg, and that should be the end of the game because now they got BrainCon as well for the green, and that will be the end of game 1. Going to game 2, I actually do side in some things here. I take out the Bottomlesses for pulling the rugs. I believe I also, I think I took out a knock for pulling the rug as well since we are going second. So it's less likely that, you know, the knock will come up as much. So I think I took out the knock and 2 Bottomlesses for 3 pulling the rugs. And I think that's the main thing I did there. But we said pulling and heavy. I figure this is the best thing to do because if they bring out like Stratos, which they likely will have some access to with the Rotas or E-Calls if they play those, then having the pulling here is good for that. And then we can go for heavy, blow out their back row. I also figure if they are playing more of a heavy Monarch package, which is also part of why I brought in the pulling the rugs, if they go side ret into a Monarch, then we can pulling that. So yeah, I figure it works out for the best here, but they do have Comfy to rip that yellow gadget out of our hand, and that's a bit unfortunate because now our engine's a bit shut off. They're going to set 3, pass back to us. We draw a Raigeki Break, which is pretty good, and they've got a Dashut for that side ret, so that's going to be a bit rough for us. We can still attack in to the set with the red. Unfortunately for us, it's a Gravekeeper Spy, so they'll deck in for them a bit, and we can't get over it, but we can still smashing 1 Spy and just pass back to them. If they summon out a Monarch here, we can pulling that and stop that from going through. But they just bring out a Trooper instead, and now they'll be able to attack over the red gadget here for 600. They're going to pass back to us. We draw a green, so that luckily does get our engine back online. We can search out a red here, and now we can attack in to that Card Trooper. They will get a draw off this, but oh wow, they're going to go for Mirror Force on that. That's very interesting play, but this does allow them to get aggressive here with the Trooper in the future. So they're going to go for a Trooper again, milling 3, and now they're just going to attack in for 1900 with that Trooper there. So we're dropping down life points like pretty quickly. I still think we're in not too bad of a spot. We're going to go for red, search out yellow, and then we're going to attack in over the Trooper there and deal them 900. They do get a draw off that, but we can set this Raigeki Break here to deal with their Spy. If they go heavy, it's a bit unfortunate, but we can still Raigeki Break to deprive them of tribute fodder for a Monarch. They're going to go for Stratos there, and we will pulling that, so the pulling getting some use there. They're going to go for D-Draw, though, anyways, pitching a Fearmonger, drawing 2, and then just passing back to us. We draw a Limiter Removal, so that's assigned to get aggressive here. We're going to search out a green off the yellow, and then we're going to Raigeki Break, pitching this Widespread to pop the Spy. I think I could have pitched the Mirror Force instead because they're down to sort of like 1 card at a time at this point, and they know about Mirror Force, whereas they don't know about Widespread, so it sort of just increases the uncertainty for them. But either way, I think this is fine. Widespread and Mirror Force do the same sort of thing, so I think it's ultimately okay. We set the Mirror Force, which they can have a pretty heavy read that it is Mirror Force, but they've got the heavy anyway, so it wouldn't have really mattered here either way. They go for a Snatch on our red, attacking over the yellow. That does deal with that, and now they'll tribute that to set a card. Okay, so that's a pretty good sign for us. We draw into a TT here, which is also pretty good. We can go for green, get that red online for next turn, and now we'll just attack into their set with the red. It is a Mally, so that's a bit worrying for us because they can potentially bring out a Monarch in the future, but we do have this TT here. We'll set the Limiter Removal because they bring out a monster to attack into green, and we just Limiter Removal. This buffs up to 2800, and they lose a fair amount of life points with that, and then we can go for red next turn to get even more aggressive. So I figure it's good to set that as a battle trick now. They're just going to set 3, pass back to us. Also, Heavy's gone, so I don't really need to worry about that, but I do potentially have to worry about Mobius, so that's something to keep in mind. I go for red, searching out yellow. And now I attack in with the red. Unfortunately for us, it's just a Reaper, but fortunately for us, we can deal with that with Raigeki Break. Well, now we can't because they Dust Tornadoed that. So that's a bit rough, but we do have a TT here to blow that up if we need to. We're just going to go for yellow, search out a card here, and we search out a green. So getting that still online, we switch the red to defense and pass back to them. They're going to just pass back to us. We draw a Call of the Haunted, which is pretty good here. So we can use that for things. We go for green. Unfortunately, I didn't realize that all our reds are in rotation, so this doesn't do anything here. So not really the right choice to make. I should have saved that for if we drew into another red Geki break or something. But I'm just going to set a call, pass back to them. They go for a Rhoda here. They're going to search out a DD Warrior Lady here, so that will be able to deal with what we've got potentially. They're going to bring out that Warrior Lady, and we will just TT the board now. So if I had held the green, then I would have had this for the next turn to attack in for 14, potentially even 28. But I did not, so that's going to get a bit rough for us. I do still have this Reaper, so I can bring out Reaper and attack in for 300 if this connects, and it will indeed connect, so we are able to rip that Dust Shoot out of their hand. Dead Dust Shoot, so it doesn't really matter either way. They are going to think about this a bit, banish a Mally for another Mally in attack mode here. And they're going to bring out a Trooper as well. So they're able to get in for a fair bit of damage here, attacking over the Reaper there, and then attacking in with the Mally there to get us down to 2,600. But, you know, we're in a pretty good spot. And I think we should be able to wrap it up from here. If they've got removal for the Sidra, we've got MST for their other back row, and then we can call plus limit removal to maybe win the game. The only thing that really stops us is if they've got Bottomless, but if they've got Bottomless, I still think we're in a fine spot. We can still go for call to bring back a gadget here and just get beating over the Mally or something like that. But I'm just going to attack in with the Sidra. They got Ring for that. So that will deal 2,100 to both of us here. We're going to MST their other back row, which is a Dead Dust Shoot. And now we can go for the call on the Sidra to wrap up the game. And we don't even have to realize, or not realize, but reveal that we're on limiter. So it worked out pretty well for us there. We're going to dive in to the next game. Again, the side deck plan is largely the same. I think I do bring in the knock now that we're going second here. And I might cut the CCV as well. But they're going to go for Rhoda for Stratos into Disc Commander here, and then they're going to set 2, pass back to us. We draw into a yellow gadget. They're going to Dust Shoot, so that's kind of rough. They take the Sidra, but we still do have our gadget engine online, which is kind of nice. We go for the gadget, or not the gadget, but the green gadget there. I was misspeaking all over the place today, but we go for a Smashing Attack in for 14. Just getting in there, and then we go for a Coffee just to get a peek at what they're working with here. So we see that they've got a Disc Commander, a Mally, a Dust Tornado, and a Cyber Dragon. I think of these, we're most afraid of Sidra. If they draw into D-Draw, that's unfortunate for us, but they can turn that on either way, no matter what we take. So I feel like that's the best option overall. And then I'm just going to pass back to them because I don't want to set a pre-mat and have them know it's a pre-mat, right? They're going to set 3, pass back to us. We draw Pulling, so that's pretty good. We can go for red here, search out a yellow, and now we can attack into their set monster with the red. That will go through. We can attack indirectly for 14 with the green. And now we can set this Pulling and the pre-mat, pass back to them. I set pre-mat as well because I want the Pulling to survive. And I figure if I activate pre-mat, they're going to be able to Dust Tornado that either way. So if they do Dust Tornado, hit the pre-mat, then it doesn't really matter here. And luckily, they do hit the pre-mat off that. So we still have our Pulling online. Unfortunately for us, they go for a Call the Haunted here, bring back the Disc Commander, drawing 2. So we could have played around that by not attacking into their monster, but I don't really feel like that's that good because we know about Mally Enhanced. They contribute over 4 Mally and then call the Haunted back the Disc Commander anyway. So we kind of had to go for this either way. They're going to think about this a bit. And they're going to go for pre-mat here to bring back a Stratos to then pop our back row. So that is a pretty good use of the Stratos there. Gets around Pulling, and they're able to bring out a Trooper as well and get super aggressive here, which makes sense to me because, you know, we've only got 2 yellow gadgets in hand. So that's a pretty beatable board there. And it's, I think, the right choice for them to go aggressive here. So they'll attack in with the Disc Commander as well and drop us down to 5,700. We draw TT, which is about the best card we could have drawn outside of like Mirror Force. But yeah, TT is very, very good here because they've got a big board that we can blow up. We're going to attack in to the Card Trooper here to get them a draw because when TT activates, they'll be able to get the draw off Card Trooper anyway, so I might as well trigger it now and get more value off things here. They've got Ring, though, so they're able to pop the yellow there, which is kind of rough. We will set this TT here, pass back to them, and they're going to activate Trooper, mill 3, and then tribute over the Disc Commander for a Mally. We've got TT for that, so we're able to pop the board at least here. But, you know, I think they had to go for that just because it was a lethal line here. And they do get a draw, and also they do have Mally online now if they do want to go for that. But knowing that we have 2 gadgets in hand, it looks like they will not, which I think makes sense. We go for a yellow to search out a green here. Just get that out of the deck. And now we'll attack in for 1,200 here, dropping them down to 2,000. We'll pass back to them. If they bring out a monster and attack, we got Smashing for that. they're going to set 2, pass back to us. We drop Raigeki Break, so that will be able to do something with that. They've got Dust Shoot, though, so they're able to shuffle back one of our greens, but honestly, that's not a bad thing. Having gadgets in the deck is a good thing, because then we can search them out with our other gadgets. We're going to go for a green, searching out a red here. And then we're going to attack in to their set monster with the green, just in case it is a spy. I think it's good to stave off some damage here. But it is indeed the spy, so they're able to bring out another spy from deck. We can smashing that, or at least one of them. And then we got Raigeki Break for the other. So we'll set that, pass back to them. They're going to think about this a bit, and they're going to just pass back to us. Perfectly fine by us. We can potentially win the game here. We go for red, searching out a yellow. And then we can Raigeki Break the spy and try and get in for lethal damage. And we are just going to attack in for 2,700 here, leaving the yellow in defense mode to play around Mirror Force. And I'm very glad I did that, because there's the Mirror Force. But, you know, we're not too upset about that, because we still have the yellow in hand to go into other gadget plays later. So it's not the worst thing in the world. They're going to bring out a Mally and then tribute that for a Mobius, popping the Call of the Haunted to turn their Treeborn Frog online. So that makes a lot of sense there. They're going to attack in to our yellow. And now we're in a bit of a bad spot. We need a pretty good top deck here. Smashing is a really good top deck. So we are going to summon out the yellow, search out a green, and then we can smashing away that Mobius there. We're going to attack in for 1,200, dropping them down to 800. They still have Treeborn Frog to bring back, so that is something there. But we still have our Monster Engine online, and if we can draw ways to deal with their board, then we should be pretty good here. They're going to set 1 pass back to us. We draw a red gadget here. Not what we wanted to see, because, I mean, you know, that's the last thing we'd search off green. So not really much we can do here. I ultimately decide just to set the red, pass back to them. They don't know about the red. But they can probably figure that it's the red, just given that we didn't summon the green. But this is kind of all we can do. I don't really want to attack in their set, because it could be like Fearmonger to bring back this commander, and then that's really bad for us. So I think in general, we just want to set the red. They are going to think about this a bit and draw, and they are going to use the Dasher effect to bring out a Trooper, special summon it. They're going to mill 3 here, and then they're going to snatch our yellow, because if the set is a green, this is actually exact lethal, because they're able to get in for 1,000 plus 12 plus 19, or not quite exact lethal, but I mean, if they attack him with staying in, this is actually exact lethal, because 800 plus 12 plus 19, that's exact lethal there. And yeah, they attack in to the red. So unfortunate for them, that'll just be the end of the game, because we'd switch red to attack it on one of their stuff. So I do respect the play they made, though, because, you know, if it was the green, then this would be lethal here. But yeah, it was the red, so that did stop them there. But this one, the last game that we got against them. Let's dive into the third match now and see if we can actually win the entire thing. We're diving into match 3. We do win the RPS, so that's pretty good. We're going first here. And this is going to be a pretty good start for us, because we draw into Crush card, plus one of the few targets in deck to actually trigger Crush card. So this is a bit of a sack here, but, you know, we take those. We're not going to use Crush card preemptively here, because I do just like to save Crush card for the last possible moment. For instance, if they have Rhoda in hand, we want to save Crush card for when they Rhoda out of Stratos, for instance. But we do set the Crush card, Raigeki Break, and Widespread Ruin. That's a bit greedy for me, but if they do go for Heavy Storm, we chain Crush card, and we're not in a too bad spot. So that is indeed what happens. We hit double Zaborg and a Stratos, so very glad that we hit those and leave them with a D-Draw plus Mally. So they can go for D-Draw plus Mally, but they're still under Crush card. They might not even want to do that. So, yeah, I think here, honestly, I should have kept either the Raigeki Break or the Widespread here in hand. I didn't need both. I just got greedy there, and unfortunately, I was punished for my greed. So, worked out a bit badly for us there, but we still got Crush card off, and we're still out ahead in terms of cards. So we'll attack in 15, and then we'll just set these 2 because Heavy's gone. They can potentially pull off a Mobius play, but they have to draw into Mobius, which is, you know, not going to happen on their Crush card, so I feel fine with this. This could come back to bite me later in the game. If, you know, after Crush card resolves, they manage to go into a Mobius here. But, you know, they get Treeborn Frog engraved there, so that's, or not engraved, but I guess they'll try to get engraved here, but they drew into Coffee there, so actually this worked out for us overall. But we're going to attack into the Frog, banish that with the Warrior Lady there. They draw into a pre-mat, and that's pretty good for them. They could have a couple different options here. They could pre-mat back the Stratos, get a search. They could go for Mally, banish, and then pre-mat back Stratos to pop some of our stuff. A lot of different options here for them. They go for Coffee to hit out this Heavy Storm. That's kind of why I kept it in hand, to bait out the Coffee, deal them 1,000 damage. And also, our board is not one that we want to Heavy at any time soon. So I feel like it's fine losing the Heavy now. They will just go pre-mat for Stratos to search out Fearmonger here. And then they're going to attack in with the Stratos there for 18. We're just going to take the 18 because we can smashing that. I feel like it's better to preserve Mirror Force as a reactive way to remove their stuff rather than, you know, just have smashing here as a non-reactive way to deal with that. So we're just going to smashing that Stratos and then pass back to them. I don't necessarily want to set into a Mobius if they've got it. Now that Crush Card is gone, they're going to attack in with Fearmonger. We're just going to Mirror Force that because I don't want to have to attack into this and then have them bring back something there. So I felt like this was pretty good. And we draw into a gadget, so our engine is online now. So I feel really good about this situation right here. We're going to attack in 14. Drop them down to 33. We got Widespread to deal with if they attack over our gadget here. They're going to set one, pass back to us. We draw a Shrink as well, which is pretty good. We can go for red, search out something with that red, search into a yellow, and we'll attack in for 2,700. If this all connects, that's very, very good for us, and it looks like it is going to all connect. So they're down to 600 life points. We'll pass back to them. They're going to banish a Mally, go into a Mally from deck there, and then potentially tribute that for a Monarch. And it looks like they're going to tribute Set, so they might have drawn into another Mally there. They're going to, or we're going to summon out a yellow here, search out a green, and now we're just going to switch the red to defense to play around Mirror Force and attack in here. But this should be the end of the game. We got Shrink to deal with their monster there. They've got MST for our back row, so that's going to be fine. There's just more information, I think, they're trying to get here. They've got Crush Card as well. So we reveal our hand, and that's going to do it. So that's going to be the end of that game there. Pretty good game for us, all things considered. But, you know, games go pretty well generally when you've got Crush Card in the first turn. So we do side out of the Crush Card package here, I think, because we don't necessarily have the most targets for it. So I don't necessarily want to play into that. And also, the Destiny Hero stuff gets under the Crush Card. Things like Spy get under Crush Card. So it's not really the best against their deck, even though it can be very powerful. So yeah, I'm going to take out the Crush Card. I take out the Bottomlesses again for the pullings. And yeah, we're just going special outside right here, bring out a green, attacking in their set is a Gravekeeper Spy, so that we'll be able to bring out another Spy there. But we can go for Comfy here, rip a card out of their hand, see what they're working with. See they've got a Mobius, a Mally, a Reaper, and a Warrior Lady here. Of those, I'm most afraid of Mobius. I'm not really like super afraid of it, but it is a monster that can get over everything that we've got here, and also pops our back row, which is a bit unfortunate. So we're going to get rid of that. And then we're just going to set a heavy, pass back to them. If they set more back row, we can use the heavy on that. And then pave the way for like our call and things like that. So they go for a Stratos here, searching out a Disc Commander, attacking over the green gadget here, dealing 400, going for the Call of the Haunted on that Mobius there to bring that back to clear our Sidra. And now things are looking a bit rough for us. We do have heavy to deal with that Mobius there. But well, Sidra is actually a really good draw. So actually things are not really looking too bad for us here because we go for heavy on that call. We go for red to search out yellow. Yellow can then search out that last green that we have because we got one green grave. So we want to get out that last green in deck so we don't brick on it later. And we'll attack over the Stratos there, set this call, pass back to them. They're going to go for a Warrior Lady here, attack into our Sidra. That's fine. We still got another Sidra in rotation that we can bring back off the call later. They're going to set one, pass back to us. We draw into Cyber Dragon, which is pretty good. We're going to go for a yellow, search out a green here. And now we're going to go for call on the Sidra to bring that back, beat over their Spy. So we're going to get in over the Spy and then get in for 2,500. This will go through, and it looks like it will indeed go through here. So that's going to be pretty good for us. We also have a Sidra in hand. If they did have Mirror Force or something, we could have brought out Sidra later to beat over the Spy. But either way, this should be pretty good for us. They go for D-draw, pitching the Mally, which is a bit rough. Now they got that Mally online. They got two draws. They're going to set two, pass back to us. We draw pulling, which is pretty good here. They do have double Dash Shoot here, so they're able to take back some things. They decide ultimately to take back double green instead of taking the Cyber Dragon, which I do think makes some sense because this does shut off our gadget engine. So that is somewhat good for them there, especially because they've got a Spirit Reaper here, and they don't necessarily want us deck thinning to get into a way to deal with Spirit Reaper. We set the pulling, pass back to them, so if they do have a Monarch to get over our Sidra, we got pulling for that. So I feel pretty good about this overall. They go for a Mally there, getting that out of the deck, and then tributing that for a Dasher. So Dasher will be able to crash in with our Sidra here, and also get it engraved for if they draw into something good. We draw into a Limiter, which is a really good way to end the game later if we do get into that. They draw into the third Mally. That is very, very rough for them, but they're going to special out that Mally with the Dasher effect, go for a Sidra here, and then beat over the red there. Unfortunately for them, this actually will be the end of the game because we draw into Overload Fusion. So, I mean, this is about as good as it gets for us here. What do you think about this? And this is indeed lethal. We go for Tribute Summoning out that Sidra and then going for an Overload for a very big Chimeritic Overdragon. This is going to be 5 materials on it, so 4,000 there. And then we can attack in over their Sidra here, and then we've got a limiter removal to end the game there. So kind of rough for them. I think it did make sense to get aggressive with that Sidra. Unfortunately, we did have the 2-card combo here to end out the game, but that can happen sometimes in these decks. You know, we kind of sacked our opponent throughout the entire third match. We had Crush Card game 1 and then this combo game 2. But gadgets can occasionally do that, especially if they thin out their deck a bit to draw into their power cards. You can wind up in these situations more often than not. But do I think gadgets can still compete in Demise format like they did in Chimera deck? I think they're still a very, very good deck, so I think they can do a lot here. But I do think the decks like T-Hero have arisen that can be a bit tough for them to face off against because those decks can just be so explosive and flexible. So also the fact that pulling the rug is now in the format means that there's a really good side deck card for gadgets because that shuts off the gadget engine there. It makes it really awkward for them. So you know, I'm not sure they'll be the best deck in the format, but I do think that they could potentially be tier 1 like they are in Chimera deck. But only time will tell. We'll have to see exactly how this deck is able to perform in the upcoming meta. If you want to play games in Demise format or any other format that I feature on the channel, head on over to the YGO from Zero Discord server, linked in the description down below. We'll also be having a monthly tournament in Demise format coming up pretty soon. So if you want to, you know, maybe bring gadgets in a competitive setting, definitely head on over to there. Also, if you like the content, subscribe to the channel and leave a like, comment down below what you think about the deck, all that good YouTube stuff. I also look forward to discussing these things with you all at the end of every video, so definitely let me know what you think about the deck down below. As always, big shout outs to my patrons, Rinswin, Porkchop, Bren Donker, Tyler Compton, Geo Mindfest, Dumptruck, and Scout Zero. It means a lot that y'all supporting this playing to make more videos like this in the future. I hope that you all enjoyed as always, and until next time, I've been Ben from YGO from Zero, and I'm signing off.